The engine coughed its last breath like a dying animal, leaving Eleanor alone on the endless ribbon of cracked asphalt that snaked through the Texas scrubland, the sun bleeding orange into the horizon as if the sky itself were wounded. She slammed her palm against the dashboard, whispering a curse that tasted like regret, her voice swallowed by the wind whipping through the open window. In that moment, as the dust devils danced mockingly around her stalled sedan, she wondered if this breakdown was fate's cruel joke, or the universe finally forcing her to face the woman she had spent years pretending not to be. Eleanor Harper had fled New York 3 days earlier, her life unraveling like a poorly knit sweater pulled at the seams. At 28, she was the picture of poised ambition. A junior editor at a midtown publishing house, her days filled with the sharp scent of fresh ink and the relentless hum of deadlines. But beneath the tailored blazers and forced smiles at rooftop cocktail hours, Eleanor carried a secret heavier than the stack of manuscripts on her desk. Her heart had always leaned toward women, a truth she buried under layers of denial and disastrous dates with men who sensed her distance like hounds on a faint trail. The final straw came from Marcus, her on-again, off-again boyfriend of 2 years, who had cornered her in their cramped East Village apartment one rainy April evening. "You're not all in, Ellie," he had said, his voice laced with accusation rather than hurt. "It's like you're waiting for something else. Someone else." She hadn't denied it, not fully, but the words hung between them until he walked out, leaving her with a leash she couldn't afford alone and a gnawing emptiness that no promotion could fill. So she packed a duffel bag with jeans she hadn't worn since college, a few dog-eared novels by authors who wrote unapologetically about love's jagged edges, and every last cent from her savings, enough for gas and grief but not much else. Destination: nowhere particular, just west, toward the open spaces her grandmother used to romanticize in bedtime stories of wide skies and second chances. Texas seemed fitting, a place of myths and contradictions, where the land stretched forgivingly but the people clung to old codes like lifelines. Now stranded 20 miles outside Lubbock, Eleanor stepped out into the heat that pressed against her skin like an unwanted embrace. The air smelled of dry earth and mesquite, so different from the metallic tang of subway grates back home. Her phone showed 2 bars, flickering like her resolve, and the tow service line rang endlessly before a bored voice promised help in, "Maybe a couple hours, darlin', if you're lucky." She kicked a pebble, watching it skitter into the ditch where wild grasses whispered secrets to the wind. This was supposed to be liberation, not humiliation. The rumble of an engine cut through her thoughts. A low, throaty growl that grew into the shape of a battered Ford pickup, its bed loaded with hay bales and coiled rope. It slowed, gravel crunching under tires worn smooth by miles of ranch roads, and pulled alongside her with the hesitation of someone weighing trust against trouble. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a woman whose presence seemed carved from the landscape itself. Mid-30s, sun-leathered skin under a wide-brimmed Stetson, her flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms strong from years of wrangling more than just cattle. Her eyes, a piercing hazel that caught the dying light, scanned Eleanor with a mix of wariness and warmth. "You look like you could use a hand," the woman said, her drawl soft as worn denim, carrying the lilt of West Texas hills. Eleanor straightened, brushing dust from her arms, suddenly aware of how city-worn she must appear. Faded sneakers caked in highway grit, hair tangled from the open window. "If by hand you mean a miracle, then yes. Car's deader than my career plans." A low chuckle escaped the woman, easing the tension like rain on parched soil. She killed the engine and swung down from the cab with the grace of someone at home in her boots. "Name's Juniper Whitaker, folks call me June. Let's see what we've got here." She circled the sedan, popping the hood with practiced ease, her movements efficient yet unhurried, as if time bent to her rhythm out here. Eleanor watched, mesmerized by the quiet competence, a stark contrast to the frantic energy of New York men who fixed problems with apps rather than calluses. "Eleanor Harper. Ellie if you like. And thanks truly. I was about to start walking, which in these heels." She gestured to her impractical flats, bought for a job interview that now felt like another life. June peered under the hood, wiping grease on a rag from her pocket. Battery cables loose, probably jostled free on these back roads. Happens more than you'd think to city rigs. She straightened, meeting Eleanor's gaze. "I can tighten it, get you rolling again." But if you're heading toward Monroe, there's a fair tonight. Could use an extra set of hands at the booth if you're not in a rush. Monroe. The name tugged at something in Eleanor's memory. A speck on the map her GPS had blinked past earlier. A town of 5,000 souls clinging to cotton fields and fading oil derricks. Monroe? Isn't that the place with the old courthouse that looks like it's straight out of a western? June's smile deepened, crinkling the corners of her eyes. That's the one. Heart of the High Plains, or so the Chamber of Commerce claims. Population's down to 4.8 now, but we've got barbecue that'd make you forget your troubles. She paused, as if reading the flicker of hesitation in Eleanor's stance. No pressure. Just, roads out here get lonely. Figured you might appreciate the company. Eleanor hesitated, the offer hanging between them like a lifeline tossed into churning waters. Back in the city, strangers were suspects until proven otherwise. Out here, they were saviors with hay in their hair. What harm in a detour? Her heart, still raw from Marcus's parting shot, craved the anonymity of motion, but something in June's steady gaze promised more. A glimpse of uncharted territory. All right. Lead the way, cowgirl. June's laugh was genuine this time, a sound that rolled like thunder over the plains. She worked quickly, her hands steady as she reconnected the cable, the engine roaring back to life with a triumphant sputter. Eleanor slid into the passenger seat of the pickup at June's insistence, safer to convoy till town, and they pulled onto the road, dust trailing behind like a reluctant farewell. The drive unfolded in comfortable silences broken by snippets of conversation. June spoke of the ranch her family had held since the Dust Bowl, how the land gave as much as it took, demanding loyalty in return. Daddy always said a Whitaker plants roots deeper than oak, she said, her voice tinged with a weariness that spoke of burdens carried alone. Eleanor shared fragments of her own world. The ceaseless rush of deadlines, the way city lights drowned out the stars. Sometimes I feel like I'm editing someone else's story, she admitted, staring at the endless flatness ahead. Chasing plots that never quite fit. June glanced over, her profile sharp against the twilight. Maybe you're due for a rewrite. Monroe's got its share of unfinished chapters. As the town lights flickered into view, neon signs for the feed store and a diner called Plainsman's Pride. Eleanor felt a stir deep in her chest, unfamiliar and insistent. It wasn't just gratitude. It was the spark of possibility, fragile as a match struck in the wind. Little did she know this dusty detour would unearth truths she had long buried, forcing her to confront the chasm between who she was and who the world demanded she become. The fairground sprawled on the outskirts of Monroe like a patchwork quilt thrown over the earth, strung with fairy lights that battled the encroaching dusk. Booths hawked everything from funnel cakes dusted with powdered sugar to handmade leather goods. The air thick with the sizzle of burgers on grills, and the twang of a country band tuning up on a makeshift stage. Eleanor followed June through the crowd, the pickup parked haphazardly near a row of trailers, her senses assaulted by the chaotic joy of small-town revelry. Children darted between legs, their laughter sharp as firecrackers, while clusters of locals nodded at June with the easy familiarity of lifelong neighbors. Over here's the Whitaker stall, June said, weaving toward a canopy laden with jars of honey from the ranch's apiary and bundles of dried herbs tied with twine. An older woman with silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun manned the table, her face lighting up at June's approach. Junebug, you made it. And who's this? The woman's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, appraised Eleanor with polite curiosity laced with something sharper, protection perhaps. Ma, this is Ellie Harper, stranded motorist, rescued by yours truly. Ellie, my mother, Loretta Whitaker. Eleanor extended a hand, feeling the weight of appraisal. Pleasure, ma'am. Your daughter's a godsend. Loretta's grip was firm, her smile thin but genuine. We Whitakers look after our own, and strays when we find 'em. Help yourself to the lavender sachets. They chase away city ghosts. The evening blurred into a rhythm of transactions and tales. Eleanor handed out jars of wildflower honey, her city polish softening under the locals' drawls and jokes. A farmer with a beard like tumbleweed regaled her with stories of coyotes smarter than city foxes, while a gaggle of teenagers eyed her with wide-eyed wonder, mistaking her accent for exotic. June moved beside her, their shoulders brushing in the tight space, each contact sending a quiet jolt through Eleanor's veins. It was innocent, these proximities, the pass of a change jar, the shared lean over a ledger, but in the glow of the lanterns they felt charged like static before a storm. As the crowd thinned, June pulled 2 cold bottles of Shiner from a cooler beneath the table. "You earned this. First fair night's always a marathon." They perched on the tailgate of the pickup, legs dangling, the band now crooning a slow ballad about lost loves and lonesome pines. The beer was crisp, cutting through the night's humidity, and Eleanor found herself talking more freely than she had in months. She spoke of the publishing world's cutthroat glamour, how manuscripts arrived like confessions, raw and pleading for validation. "I read these stories of women breaking free, loving fiercely despite the odds," she said, her voice dropping as the words edged too close to home. "And I think, why can't that be mine?" June took a long pull from her bottle, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the fair's lights met the dark. "Freedom's a tricky Mustang. Looks wild from afar, but up close, it's all scars and stubbornness. Out here folks expect you to ride the family line. Marry local, raise kids on the same dirt you played in. Deviate, and you're the talk till the next scandal." Eleanor turned, catching the shadow that crossed June's features. "Sounds like you've danced that line." A nod, slow and weighted. "Grew up with Daddy's Bible verses and Ma's expectations. Thought I'd follow, courting boys at the county dances, dreaming of a spread bigger than this one. But life has a way of showing you the fence before you hit it." She paused, her fingers tracing the label on her bottle, peeling it in careful strips. "Lost my fiancé 5 years back. Truck accident on the interstate. After that, well, the heart doesn't always heal straight." The confession hung there, intimate in its brevity, and Eleanor felt a pang. Not pity but recognition. She knew that fracture, the way loss reshapes you, leaving hollows where certainties once stood. "I'm sorry. That kind of pain. It echoes." June met her eyes then, the hazel depths holding a vulnerability that mirrored Eleanor's own. "It does. But echoes fade if you let 'em. What's chasing you out here, Ellie? Not just a loose cable." The question pierced and Eleanor looked away, the beer's warmth loosening the knot in her throat. "A man who saw too much. Or not enough. I've always known I was different. Liked girls in high school, buried it under sorority mixers and safe choices. Marcus was the latest safe bet. When it crumbled I ran. Figured the road might sort me out." Silence stretched, companionable yet electric, broken only by the distant call of a night bird. June's hand brushed Eleanor's knee as she shifted. A fleeting touch, accidental perhaps, but it lingered in the air between them, warm and unspoken. "Roads have a way of sorting. Or complicating." Her voice was low, threaded with something Eleanor couldn't name, but it stirred the embers of a longing she had long suppressed. By midnight, the fair had wound down to embers and echoes, the Whitakers packing up under the moon's pale watch. Loretta insisted Eleanor stay the night. Guest rooms cleaner than the motel and cheaper. And June drove them back to the ranch in companionable quiet, the pickup's headlights carving tunnels through the dark. The Whitaker spread lay 10 miles north, a cluster of weathered barns and a 2-story house with wraparound porch, its white paint peeling like old memories. Inside, the air smelled of aged wood and simmering chili from supper, the walls lined with faded photos of stern ancestors and June as a gap-toothed girl astride a pony. Eleanor sank into the quilted bed, the room's simplicity a balm after city chaos. But sleep evaded her, her mind replaying the evening's fragments. June's laugh, the brush of fingers, the way her eyes held stories yet untold. In the quiet, Eleanor allowed herself to wonder, what if this detour was no accident, but the plot twist her life had been begging for? Dawn crept in with birdsong, and as she rose to the scent of coffee, she felt the first tentative pull of roots in unfamiliar soil. The morning sun slanted through the kitchen window like a spotlight on a stage set for revelation, gilding the scarred oak table where Loretta presided over breakfast with the authority of a matriarch. Plates of biscuits, fluffy and golden, steamed beside jars of fig preserves from the orchard out back, and a pot of coffee bubbled on the stove, its aroma thick and grounding. Eleanor slid into a chair, her hair still tousled from uneasy dreams, feeling like an intruder in this tableau of domestic ritual. "Mornin', city girl," Loretta said, sliding a mug her way without ceremony. Sleep all right? Bed's here's firmer than a politician's promise. Better than a motel cot, Eleanor replied, cradling the warmth. This place. It's like stepping into a photograph. Real. June entered then, fresh from the stables, her shirt damp with the promise of chores done. She poured her own coffee, leaning against the counter with that effortless poise, her presence filling the room like the low hum of cicadas outside. Ma's got a way of making history feel habitable. What's the plan today, Ellie? Tow trucks due by noon? Or you aiming to linger? The question carried layers, unspoken invitations woven into the casual tone. Eleanor sipped, the bitter brew steadying her. Car first. Then. Who knows? I've got time I didn't plan on spending. Loretta's eyes flicked between them, sharp but not unkind. Time's the one crop that grows wild out here. June, show her the back 40 after breakfast. Might cure that skyline sickness. They ate in companionable rhythm, forks scraping plates, conversation meandering from the fair's gossip. A banker's wife caught flirting with the rodeo clown, to the ranch's worries. Drought parching the wells, calves too weak to stand. Eleanor listened, absorbing the cadence of their world, so removed from her own where success was measured in word counts and wine lists. June's voice anchored it all, steady as the land she tended, and Eleanor found herself stealing glances, tracing the line of her jaw, the way sunlight caught the faint scar above her eyebrow, a remnant perhaps of some youthful recklessness. After, with the tow truck's distant rumble still hours away, June led her out the kitchen door. Boots crunching on gravel that gave way to packed earth. The back 40 unfolded like a canvas of resilience. Acres of wire-fenced pasture dotted with longhorns whose coats gleamed russet in the light, a windmill creaking lazily against the blue vault of sky. They walked in silence at first, the only sounds the rustle of grass and the occasional low of cattle, until June broke it with a question that cut to the marrow. What scares you most about going back, Ellie? The job or the mirror? Eleanor stopped, the words landing like stones in still water. They stood by a splintered fence post, the wood warm under her palm, and she met June's gaze, direct, unflinching. Both. The job's a cage I built myself, all glass walls and golden handcuffs. But the mirror? That's the one showing cracks I can't edit out. I spent years pretending, dating men who fit the script, telling myself it was just a phase. Then Marcus leaves, and I'm left wondering if I ever knew the lines at all. June nodded, her expression softening into something achingly tender. Pretending's a heavy load. Out here it's easier to spot, folks wear their judgments like Sunday hats. But inside it's the same war. I lost Travis, my fiancé, and part of me thought that was the end of the story. Duty done, heart locked away. Then the quiet nights come, and you realize some parts of you don't bury easy. The admission hung. A bridge extended over the chasm of their shared silences. Eleanor's pulse quickened, the air between them thickening with the scent of sage and possibility. She reached out, her fingers brushing June's wrist where a leather cord bracelet dangled. A simple thing, beads carved like tiny stars. What if those parts are the truest ones? June's breath caught, her hand turning to capture Eleanor's in a grip that was tentative, then sure. Time suspended, the world narrowing to the calluses against soft skin, the hazel eyes darkening with a hunger long leashed. Their lips met in a kiss that tasted of coffee and courage, soft at first, then deepening with the urgency of dammed rivers breaking free. It was a moment stolen from the wind, bodies leaning into the fence as if it could hold them upright against the pull of gravity and doubt. When they parted breathless, June rested her forehead against Eleanor's, a whisper escaping. It's a complication I didn't ask for. But damn if it doesn't feel right. The tow truck arrived like an unwelcome guest, its hook glinting menacingly in the midday glare. The mechanic, a grizzled man named Hank with grease-blackened nails, pronounced the sedan roadworthy after a quick patch, loose cable confirmed, plus a radiator flush for good measure. 200 even, miss. Cash or card? Eleanor paid, her wallet lighter but her spirit oddly buoyant, watching as Hank tested the engine's revived purr. June stood nearby, arms crossed, her stance a mix of reluctance and resolve. You heading out now? Interstate's that way. Straight shot to Amarillo? Then wherever the wind takes you. The question was a crossroads, the dusty road stretching both ways. Eleanor slid into the driver's seat, window down, the cab still carrying the faint imprint of June's presence from the night before. Part of me says yes. Keep running, chase the horizon till it blurs. But another part. She trailed off, searching June's face, the words forming like prayers. Dinner tonight? If you're free. A smile broke across June's features, slow and sunlit. Ranch hands eat at 6. Ma makes a mean pot roast. Bring your appetite and maybe that city skepticism. We could use a fresh eye on things. Eleanor drove away with the promise humming in her veins, the sedan eating miles back to Monroe's lone motel. A squat building called the Plains Rest, its sign flickering like a heartbeat. She checked in for the week, the clerk's board not her only welcome, and spent the afternoon wandering the town's veins. The Five and Dime with its shelves of faded candies, the library where dust motes danced in sunbeams over dog-eared westerns, the courthouse square where old men whittled sticks and swapped tales of booms long busted. Monroe was a place suspended, its Victorian facades cracking under the weight of progress bypassed, yet pulsing with a stubborn vitality that mirrored June's own. Dinner at the ranch unfolded under the porch's benevolent shade, the table laden with roast carved pink and tender, cornbread crumbling warm, greens wilted with bacon fat. Loretta presided with stories of June's girlhood, racing bareback across fields, outpacing every boy in the county, while June demurred, her foot nudging Eleanor's under the table in secret Morse code. Conversation flowed like the creek that bordered the property, meandering from ranch woes to Eleanor's tales of subway symphonies and skyscraper sunsets. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt seen, not as a role to fill, but as a story unfolding. As stars pricked the velvet sky, June walked her to the pickup. "Stay the night," she murmured, the words a caress against the cooling air. "Guest room's empty, but there's a hammock out by the barn. Quiet. Ours." Eleanor nodded, heart a wild thing in her chest, and they slipped away like shadows, the hammock swaying gently between two live oaks. They lay entwined, bodies fitting like puzzle pieces long separated, kisses tracing paths of rediscovery. June's hands were reverent, mapping Eleanor's curves with the care of someone tending fragile blooms, while Eleanor's fingers tangled in June's hair, unleashing sighs that mingled with the night's chorus. It was more than passion, a claiming of selves long hidden, a defiant yes to the desire society deemed deviance. Dawn found them tangled in sheets borrowed from the linen closet, the guest room's door latched against the world. Eleanor traced lazy patterns on June's back, the skin warm and freckled like autumn fields. "This feels like a dream I'll wake from," she whispered. June turned, her eyes solemn. "Then let's make it the kind that lingers." "But Ellie," Monroe's got eyes, tongues that wag faster than a dust storm. "We tread careful, or it turns on us." The warning settled like dust on a window pane, blurring the view ahead. Eleanor pushed it aside, choosing instead the immediacy of June's touch, the way love, once tasted, refused to be denied. Days blurred into a tentative rhythm, Eleanor's motel room becoming less a way station and more a base for forays into June's world. She volunteered at the library, shelving books with the head librarian, Mrs. Caldwell, a widow with a penchant for Faulkner and a nose for unspoken sorrows. "You read like a woman with questions," Mrs. Caldwell remarked one afternoon, handing her a worn copy of As I Lay Dying. "This one's about carrying burdens you can't outrun. Might speak to you." Eleanor devoured it that night, the prose's raw grit echoing her own upheavals, but it was June who truly unraveled her. Mornings began with coffee on the porch, watching the sun gild the corrals, June's stories painting the ranch's history. Great-grandfather striking oil only to lose it in the crash, grandmother birthing twins during a blizzard, the land's unyielding demand for sweat and soul. Afternoons were stolen hours, riding double on June's mare Cinnamon, the horse's gait lulling them into confessions. Eleanor spoke of her mother's disapproval, the subtle barbs at family gatherings about finding a nice boy, how coming out would shatter the fragile peace of holidays. "It's like walking a tightrope over glass," she said, wind whipping her words as they crested a rise. "One slip and everything shatters." June reined in, the landscape sprawling below like a promise. "Glass cuts both ways. My family's no saints. Daddy's ghost still preaches from the mantle, all fire and brimstone on unnatural ways. Ma suspects, I think. sees the shifts in me since Travis. But she loves quiet like through actions, not words. If she knew about us. She trailed off, the unspoken weight pressing. Yet in those moments doubt dissolved into desire. Evenings brought them together in hidden groves, where the creek murmured approval over their union. Their lovemaking was a language of rediscovery. Tender explorations under starlit canopies, June's whispers fierce with affirmation. You're home here, Ellie. With me. Eleanor, once guarded, bloomed under the attention. Her body a map June navigated with innate grace, each touch erasing the echoes of past pretenses. But Monroe's undercurrents stirred, subtle at first. A lingering glance at the diner where Eleanor and June shared pie after chores, the waitress's smile tightening like a noose. Whispers followed, carried on the wind from the feed store to church pews. That Yankee girl's cozying up to June Whittaker. Heard she's one of them city types, loose morals and all. Eleanor caught fragments, her city instincts prickling. But June dismissed them with a shrug. Small towns chew on change like gristle. Let 'em talk. It starves eventual. The fracture came unannounced, on a Thursday sweltering with the threat of thunderheads. Eleanor was at the ranch, helping June mend a section of fence battered by wind, their laughter mingling with hammer strikes, when Loretta's pickup rattled up the drive. She emerged, face drawn like pulled taffy, clutching a manila envelope as if it burned. June. Ellie. Inside. Now. Her voice brooked no delay, laced with a tremor that set Eleanor's teeth on edge. In the kitchen, under the fluorescent buzz, Loretta spread photos across the table, grainy shots from a disposable camera, capturing June and Eleanor in the hammock's embrace, lips locked, hands entwined. Stolen moments, now weapons. Found these slipped under the door this morning. No note, but the message is clear. Reverend Hale's boy delivered him, face like he'd swallowed sin. June's color drained, her hand finding Eleanor's under the table, squeezing till knuckles whitened. Ma, it's not. Don't, Loretta cut in, her eyes glistening with unshed fury. I raised you to honor this house, this name. Travis was gone, God rest him, and I let you grieve. But this? Parading deviants under my roof? The town's already buzzing. Folks crossing the street, orders drying up at the market. We're Whittakers. We stand tall, not like this. Eleanor felt the room tilt, shame's old specter rising like bile. Mrs. Whittaker, I never meant. You, Loretta turned, her gaze ablade. You came like a stray, and I fed you. Thought you adrift, needing kindness. But you've poisoned my girl. Dragged her into your city filth. Pack your things. Leave before sundown. June surged to her feet, chair scraping like a cry. No. Ma, you don't get to decide this. Ellie's not poison. She's the first real thing I've felt since the wreck. I love her. And if that's sin, then paint me damned. The word love landed like lightning, illuminating Eleanor's core, but Loretta recoiled as if struck. Love? This ain't love, it's rebellion. Your daddy'd roll in his grave. Think of the ranch, the legacy. Marry Harlan Tate like planned, solid man, steady spread. Or lose it all. Harlan Tate. The name pierced Eleanor anew. A widower in his 40s, neighbor with eyes that lingered too long at church socials. June's arranged future whispered about in passing. Pressure, not passion. June's face crumpled, torn between blood and beating heart. Ma, please. Give us time. Loretta gathered the photos, her movements mechanical. Time's what got us here. Supper's at 6 for family. Ellie, the door's that way. She left them in the kitchen's hush, the envelope's flap sealing like a tomb. June sank into a chair, head in hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Eleanor knelt before her, cupping her face, thumbs brushing tears that tasted of salt and sorrow. June, look at me. We can fight this. Together. But June's eyes, red-rimmed, held fracture lines. Fight how? This is her world, Ellie's. Ma's all I got left. The ranch. It's not just dirt. It's him, her, every ancestor who bled for it. If I choose you, it crumbles. And Harlan. He's kind, expects nothing but a name on the deed. Safe. The word safe twisted in Eleanor's gut, echoing Marcus's safe harbors, the safe lies she told herself. Safe's a cage, June. You taught me that. Out here pretending's the real poison. Come with me. New York or anywhere. We rewrite the story our way. June pulled away, standing to pace the worn linoleum, her boots echoing isolation. And leave what? The graves, the gates, the girl who stared at skirts in secret and learned to hide? I want to, God, I want to. But love. Real love, it shouldn't demand everything. The thunder broke then. Rain lashing the windows like accusations, mirroring the storm within. Eleanor rose, arms aching to hold, but June stepped back, the chasm widening. Stay tonight, June whispered. One more. Then. I don't know. They clung in the guest room as sheets of water blurred the world outside. Bodies seeking solace in frenzy. Kisses desperate as farewells. June's touches were fervent. A litany of I'm sorry murmured against skin, while Eleanor's heart fractured with each gasp. Dawn would bring choices, but in the night's mercy, they were whole, two women defying the dawn's decree, if only for hours. End of file 3 to 1,000 words. The rain had scoured the land clean by morning, leaving the air sharp with petrichor and the fields glistening like renewed vows. But inside the ranch house, the storm lingered, heavy as the silence between June and Loretta at breakfast. Eleanor lingered in the guest room, folding her few belongings with hands that trembled, each crease a concession to inevitability. She had lain awake after their midnight union, listening to June's breaths even out into uneasy sleep, the weight of unspoken ultimatums pressing like a boot on her chest. Downstairs, voices rose in hushed confrontation, Loretta's measured pleas clashing with June's defiant murmurs. Snatches filtered through the floorboards. Legacy ain't chains. Heart's not a bargaining chip. Eleanor dressed quickly, jeans stiff from disuse, a simple blouse that felt like armor, and descended the stairs, each step a countdown. They were at the table, coffee cold and untouched, Loretta's face etched with the lines of a night's vigil. June looked up first, her eyes shadowed, holding a plea Eleanor couldn't decipher. Ellie, Ma and I, we're talking. Loretta nodded curtly, gesturing to a chair. Sit. No sense running on empty words. Her tone was steel wrapped in silk, the envelope of photos nowhere in sight, burned perhaps or hidden like shame. Eleanor sat, spine rigid, the chair's creak amplifying the tension. Mrs. Whitaker, last night. Last night was a mistake, Loretta interjected, but her gaze softened fractionally. Not you, child. The hiding. I birthed June under that roof, watched her grow strong on this soil. Thought grief had walled her off, but seeing her now, alive, eyes bright. It's a mother's ache to deny it. She paused, fingers twisting a napkin into knots. Reverend Hale's circling, threatening to stir the pot at Sunday service. Harlan's already sniffing, offering to set things right with a quick engagement. But I won't trade my daughter's soul for peace. June's hand found Eleanor's under the table, a lifeline in the maelstrom. Ma. Loretta met her gaze, the vulnerability cracking her facade. I lost your daddy to that rig explosion, 48 gone in a flash. Promised myself I'd hold this family fierce. But fierce don't mean blind. If this, you two, it's real, then face it square. No shadows. But Monroe? It chews on difference till there's nothing left. You stay, it'll break you both. The words landed with the clarity of a bell toll. Tolling not end but awakening. Eleanor squeezed June's hand, her voice steady despite the quake within. What if we don't hide? Show them love isn't the enemy. It's the land, the legacy, us. Loretta's laugh was bitter, tinged with admiration. Brave words from a Yankee. But courage costs. Think on it. Now eat. Fence needs mending and life's too short for cold biscuits. She rose, leaving them to the kitchen's hush, her departure a tentative truce. June exhaled, shoulders slumping. She's bending. Not breaking but bending. Ellie, last night I thought I'd lose you, lose us. Harlan's offer. It's duty, not desire. But you're the spark I didn't know I was missing. Eleanor leaned in, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. Then let's ignite. No more running. The day unfolded in fragile normalcy. Fence posts hammered true. Cattle herded with whistles and patience, the sun drying mud to cracked earth. But undercurrents swirled. A neighbor's truck idling too long at the gate, eyes peering from the cab. A call to June's cell from Harlan Tate, his voice tinny through the speaker. Heard rumors, Junie. Need to talk. For old times. June hung up mid-sentence, her face a mask, but the seed of doubt took root. Evening brought the town's weekly potluck at the community hall, a ritual Loretta insisted they attend. Show face, or they invent yours. Eleanor hesitated, the exposure a gauntlet, but June's hand in hers was resolve. Together, June said, and they drove in, the pickup's cab a cocoon against the gathering dusk. The hall buzzed with forced cheer. Long tables groaning under casseroles and jello salads, strings of bulbs casting warm halos over faces etched with curiosity and covert judgment. Reverend Hale held court near the punch bowl, his smile oily as he clapped June's shoulder. Juniper, good to see you upright. And this is? Eleanor Harper, June replied, chin lifted. Staying on a spell. Helping at the ranch. Hale's eyes narrowed, flicking to their linked hands before widening in feigned warmth. Wonderful. Monroe welcomes all wanderers, though some paths lead astray. Proverbs warns of that. His gaze lingered on Eleanor, a sermon in a stare. The evening wore on in eddies of conversation, women complimenting Eleanor's exotic recipes, a lie but polite, men probing June about the dry spell's toll. Harlan Tate arrived late, broad-shouldered in starched denim, his handshake for Eleanor firm to the point of warning. Heard you're a writer. Pen mightier than the sword, but out here it's the plow that counts. To June, his whisper was intimate. We need to sort this, darlin'. For the spread's sake. June extricated herself gracefully, pulling Eleanor to the dance floor where a fiddler scraped out a two-step. They moved in sync, bodies close in the press, the rhythm a defiance. Whispers rippled, but so did glances of quiet envy, two women unapologetic in their grace. For a moment the hall felt like an ally, the music a veil over malice. But malice waits. As they exited, Hale cornered them by the door, Bible in hand like a gavel. Juniper, a word. Your mother's called, concerned. This entanglement. It's a snare. Confess, repent, and the Lord's grace abounds. June's retort was steel. Grace abounds where love lives, Reverend. Mine's with Ellie. Preach to the wind if you must. They drove home in charged silence, Hale's shadow lengthening behind. At the ranch, Loretta waited on the porch, shotgun casual across her lap. Not threat but sentinel. Heard the buzz. Town splitting, half with him, half holding breath. Harlan's pushing a meeting tomorrow, elders and all. Claims it's for the good of the community. June's face hardened. Let him. We're not his to parcel. That night, in the hammock's sway, they made love with the ferocity of the embattled. Kisses bruising, bodies arching against the weave, reclaiming territory inch by inch. Eleanor whispered promises into June's ear. We'll weather this, build something unbreakable. And June clung, her cries a vow against the dark. But as sleep claimed them, Eleanor felt the first crack. June's phone left on the porch rail, lit with a text from Harlan. Tomorrow. For her sake. Don't make me force it. Dawn brought confrontation. Harlan's truck kicking dust up the drive. Reverend Hale in the passenger seat like a co-conspirator. Loretta met them at the gate, arms crossed, but June and Eleanor flanked her, a united front. Harlan dismounted, hat in hand, his face a map of false concern. Junie, this has gone far enough. The girl's leading you wrong, city ways unnatural. Marry me quiet-like and we merge the lands. Save face, save the ranch. Hale nodded, scripture at the ready. The wages of sin, Juniper. Repent or the congregation withdraws support. Tithes, trade, all. June stepped forward, Eleanor's hand in hers a anchor. Save your sermons and your deeds, Harlan. I don't love you, never did. This land's mine by blood and bone, not bargain. And Ellie? She's the best of me. You threaten that, you threaten all of us. The air crackled, Harlan's face reddening like overripe tomato. Fool girl. You'll regret. Banks calling notes due, droughts no joke. Without alliance, you're dust. He spat the words and climbed into his truck. Hale's parting shot a curse wrapped in prayer. Hell's gates yawn wide. Tires spun gravel as they fled, leaving silence in their wake. Loretta exhaled, shotgun lowering. That went better than braced for. But they're not done. Town meetings Sunday, Hale rally the pious. Eleanor turned to June, fear mingling with fire. We stand. June's kiss was fierce, sealing it. We stand. Sunday dawned with the deceptive calm of a held breath, the sky a flawless azure that mocked the turmoil brewing below. Monroe's community hall, usually a haven for pie socials and harvest dances, loomed like a coliseum as locals filed in, pews creaking under the weight of anticipation. Whispers slithered through the crowd. Whitaker girls gone soft in the head. That Yankees trouble, mark my words. Each barb a stone lobbed at the fragile edifice June and Eleanor had begun to build. They entered arm in arm, Loretta a step behind, her presence a shield of quiet defiance. Heads turned, murmurs swelling to a hum, but June's chin was high, her free hand clutching a worn notebook, pages filled with Eleanor's borrowed words, drafts of a life unscripted. Eleanor felt exposed, her city cynicism cracking under the scrutiny, yet June's grip grounded her, a pulse of solidarity. Reverend Hale mounted the makeshift podium, Bible thumping like a judge's gavel, his flock nodding in rhythmic agreement. Brothers and sisters, we gather not in joy but in lament. Sin walks our streets disguised as affection, a perversion of God's design, threatening the very soul of Monroe. Juniper Whitaker, once a pillar, now ensnared by this outsider's wiles. We must act for the children's sake, the land's sanctity. Murmurs crescendoed to calls. Amen. Cast her out. Harlan Tate rising like a specter, his voice booming. I've offered alliance, merger of ranches, stability. She spurns it for this. Droughts upon us, we can't afford division. Vote now, support the union or watch Whitaker fall. The air thickened, suffocating as hands shot up in approval. A wave crashing toward submersion. Eleanor's stomach nodded, visions of flight flashing. Pack the sedan, flee to Oregon's rains or Vermont's greens, anywhere but this crucible. But June squeezed her hand, stepping forward, voice cutting through the din like a whip. Enough. The single word halted the tide, all eyes swiveling. June ascended the steps, notebook in hand, her drawl steady as bedrock. Reverend Harlan, neighbors, I've broken bread with you, mended your fences, mourned your losses. This town raised me and I love it fierce. But love's not your monopoly. I've hidden too long, grieving Travis, burying parts of me deeper than dirt. Ellie woke that in me. She's not perversion. She's salvation. Gasps rippled, but June pressed on, flipping pages, her words a torrent honed by Eleanor's editorial ear. You preach legacy, but legacy's not chains. It's the courage to evolve. My great-grandma crossed the plains alone, birthed Pa in Asadi. Ma held this ranch through busts and blizzards. That's strength, not scripture's shadow. Ellie and I? We're that strength. Two women choosing truth over tolerance's lie. Eleanor rose then, heart hammering, joining June at the podium, their hands linking publicly for the first time. The crowd shifted, some averting eyes, others leaning in, curiosity warring with creed. I'm no saint, Eleanor said, voice gaining volume. City girl, running from my own ghosts. Denied who I am till it nearly devoured me. But here with June I found home. Not in soil but soul. Judge us if you must, but don't deny what's human. The right to love without apology. Loretta stood next, her voice a clarion. My girl's no straying lamb. She's Whitaker through marrow. Threaten her, you threaten me. And this land? It don't care for your narrow gates. It feeds the bold. The hall fell into stunned hush, then fracture. Claps sporadic at first, swelling from the back, where younger faces glowed with vicarious fire. Mrs. Caldwell nodded fiercely. A farmer's wife wiped tears. Even a few elders murmured assent. Harlan blustered. Hale thundered damnation. But the tide turned, whispers evolving to reluctant nods. Maybe they're right. Ain't huttin' no one. Harlan stormed out, Hale trailing with impotent fury, but the meeting dissolved not in riot but reflection. Potluck plates passed in awkward peace, conversations skirting edges of understanding. As they exited into twilight, a cluster of women approached, the waitress from the diner, a teacher from the school, offering quiet support. Takes guts, girls. Doors open at my place if need. Driving home, the cab alive with exhaled relief, June pulled over at the creek's bend, kissing Eleanor with the desperation of survival. We did it, she breathed. Faced the fire. But victory's aftertaste was ash. That night, as they lay in the big bed, Loretta's blessing in a shared room, the phone shattered the idyll. June answered, face paling. Harlan? What, the bank? Eleanor's blood chilled as June listened, nods mechanical. Notes called? All of them? But the merger. Harlan's revenge. Leveraging influence. Accelerating loans the drought had strained. The ranch teetered, foreclosure's shadow looming. June hung up, crumpling to the floor, sobs racking her frame. It's over. He pulled strings. Banks foreclosing unless I sign with him by week's end. Ma's legacy. Gone. Eleanor knelt, cradling her. Rage and helplessness warring. We'll fight. Lawyers, fundraisers. With what? June's voice cracked. This town's half-turned, but money talks louder than morals. I can't drag you into ruin. Go back, Ellie. New York. I'll handle it. The betrayal stung. Not of June but fate's cruel pivot. Eleanor refused, holding tighter. No. We end this together or not at all. Dawn brought strategy. Loretta rallying allies, calling in favors from sympathetic ranchers. Eleanor drafting appeals, her publishing contacts a lifeline for media spin. But Harlan's web tightened. Trucks blocking supply runs, Hale's sermons stoking boycotts. June withdrew, shadows deepening under her eyes. Duties pull inexorable. The breaking point came midweek, Harlan at the gate again, papers in hand. Sign, Junie. Save the dirt. She's not worth the dust. June emerged alone, Loretta and Eleanor watching from the porch. Minutes stretched, voices low, then June's shout. Get off my land. But as Harlan drove away, June lingered, head bowed. Inside she faced them, papers unsigned but spirit fractured. He offered a payout, enough to start fresh elsewhere. But Ma. The house. Loretta's eyes welled. Child, the house is bricks. You're the heart. June turned to Eleanor, tears carving trails. I chose wrong once, bearing me for duty. Can't again. But the cost. Eleanor crossed the room, cupping June's face. Cost shared. Pack the truck. We're going now. Sell what we can, fight the rest from afar. Love's the only legacy worth keeping. June's sob was surrender. Arms enveloping Eleanor in crushing embrace. Loretta nodded, packing her own bag. 3 stronger than 1. Head north, Oregon maybe. Rain washes clean. They fled under cover of dusk, the ranch receding like a dream deferred. Harlan's distant truck a futile pursuit. The road stretched forgiving, stars winking approval, as 3 women claimed their exodus. Not defeat but defiance reborn. The interstate unspooled westward like a vein pumping freedom's pulse. The pickup's bed laden with essentials. Loretta's shotgun, crates of heirloom seeds. Eleanor's laptop humming with half-formed pleas for aid. June drove first, knuckles white on the wheel. Monroe's lights fading to pinpricks in the rearview. Each mile a severance from the soil that had both nurtured and scarred. Eleanor sat shotgun, hand on June's thigh. A constant anchor. While Loretta dozed in back, her snores a rhythmic benediction against the engine's growl. They aimed for Oregon, the coastal towns missed a bomb for Texas fire, where small farms dotted hills like scattered thoughts and communities prided on reinvention. Nights blurred in motels strung along the route, cheap rooms with neon buzz, where they made love in tangled sheets. June's body a testament to resilience, Eleanor's whispers weaving futures from frayed threads. We'll buy a spread, June murmured one dawn in Oklahoma, lips tracing Eleanor's collarbone. Horses, bees, space to breathe. Loretta contributed grit. Calls to old contacts, a distant cousin in Portland with acreage to lease. No handouts, she insisted over diner hash browns. Partnership. We earn it. Challenges dogged like dust. A blown tire in New Mexico, forcing a roadside huddle under stars that felt judgmental. News from Monroe, Hale's congregation splintering, Harlan's bluster hollowing as allies peeled away. Eleanor fired off emails, her editor's voice pitching their story to progressive outlets. Lesbian ranchers defy Heartland bigotry. From dusk to dawn. Responses trickled. Interest from a podcast, a queer mag eager for the raw. By Colorado, fractures mended into resolve. They stopped at a roadside stand for elk jerky and tales from a grizzled vet who saw their weariness. Running or chasing? He asked. Both, June replied. Till they meet. Oregon welcomed with drizzle that kissed rather than scorched, the Willamette Valley unfolding in greens alien to Plains eyes. They found the cousin's farm, A modest 10 acres of vineyard edges and pasture, least cheap for winter fallow. Loretta took to it like kin, pruning vines with shears that sang, while June mucked stalls for a neighbor, her hands rediscovering joy in labor unburdened by legacy's glare. Eleanor, freelance now, turned their odyssey into prose, a manuscript titled Dust Roads and Defiant Hearts, chapters pulsing with the drama of their flight, the fairground spark, the porch confessions, the hall's showdown. Publishers nibbled, one from San Francisco biting hard. This is Brokeback meets fried green tomatoes. Raw redemptive. Settling unfolded in fits. A potluck with locals, queer farmers, artist transplants, who shared wine and war stories. Their acceptance a quiet revolution. June's first kiss with Eleanor in public daylight came at a county fair. Under harvest moon lanterns, met not with stares but cheers. Loretta, softening like aged leather, even danced with a widow from the co-op, her laughter a novel sound. Yet echoes lingered. A letter from Monroe arrived via Mrs. Caldwell. Town splitting further, Hale ousted for divisiveness. Harlan's ranch faltering under boycotted beef. You planted seeds, girls, she wrote. Some took root. One evening, as rain pattered the tin roof of their leased cabin, June pulled Eleanor to the porch swing. Loretta inside humming hymns repurposed for hope. Regrets? June asked, head on shoulder. Eleanor traced the scar above June's brow. A map of survivals. None. You pulled over, changed everything. Gave me life. Not just survival. June's kiss was slow, seasoned with years' wisdom. And you, city girl, showed me freedom's not flight. It's facing the storm, then dancing in the clearing. Loretta emerged, shawl-wrapped, settling beside with mugs of cider. To roots replanted, she toasted, clinking china against tin. The valley cradled them, a new chapter etched in fertile soil. Love not as rebellion but reclamation. Eleanor typed into the night, words flowing like the creek nearby. Tales of two women who traded dusk for dawn, proving that against society's tempests, the human heart endures unbowed, unbreakable. In Monroe's shadow they had shattered chains. Here they wove tapestries of tomorrow, threads of tenderness and tenacity, a legacy not inherited but invented. Months later, the book deal solidified, readings drawing crowds, Brooklyn hipsters nodding alongside Texas exiles, each page a bridge over divides. June and Eleanor stood at podiums, hands linked, voices intertwined. We got stranded once, but together we found the road home. And in quiet nights under Oregon's forgiving rains, they whispered thanks to dusty detours, cowgirl saviors, and the fierce grace of choosing self over silence, a testament that love in all its forms is the truest rebellion, the deepest humanity.